Hello, everyone. We've made it to episode number 8 of Concord Athletic Alumni at Work on this interview series. It is our pleasure to be able to catch up with the most decorated athlete in the history of Concord University. Please allow me, two-time NCAA Division II national champion, 6-time All-American, 6-time conference champion, and current school record holder in 9 events on the track. Please welcome to this edition of the interview series, Shawnee, Carnett, Kegley. Shawnee, how are you?
Good. How are you, Wes?
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to this, and I told you before we started rolling the tape that I wanted to get you on about a month ago, make you about episode number 1, number 2, number 3, somewhere in there. But maybe the most important title you have is not the All-Americans, not the national championships, but you're now a mother of 3. So how is life going for you right now?
It's going good. We have a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a almost 6-week-old. So we're pretty busy.
Yeah, things are probably at a different pace for you right now, right?
Yeah, that's definitely different.
Sure. Yeah, and I thought about this as I was preparing for this. You're 6 years removed from your second national championship, almost 9 years removed, or over 9 years, I guess, removed from your first national championship. And do you still sit back now and just think and find it hard to believe that you're a 2-time national champion in college athletics? I mean, is that just insane to you sometimes?
Yeah, I think, now I'm a mom, so, life is just different. And sometimes I'm like, man, I won 2 national championships. That happened.
Well, we certainly don't forget about your success around here. You got the banners hanging in the gymnasium, and I know you made the joke with Coach McBride whenever he was still here at Concord, or maybe he made the joke with you. Maybe that's what it was. I ain't going to let a whole lot of people hang in my gym, but I'll let someone like you hang in my gym. So we obviously haven't forgotten your success around here, the 2 national champions in the 2011 outdoor season and then the 2014 indoor season. We're going to cover that and a lot more. But Shawnee, in preparation for this interview, I went back and listened to your Hall of Fame speech. I always try to find some different things to kind of get me started here. And you said in your Hall of Fame speech, your first ever competitive race, you walked in the mile. A lot has changed here for you. So just kind of take me through, I guess the time that you started running, kind of what age were you, and then kind of get me into your college days if you could, or, at the start of your college days, I should say.
Well, so I was in middle school and I played basketball in 7th grade, and my basketball coach was like, you should come run track. And I was like, okay, so I will. Well, I like to run. I seem to like to run. I didn't know anything about it. You're not trained in middle school. Around here, there's no training.
Mm-hmm.
You just go to the race and you race.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the mile, which, I kind of thought something shorter, but I did the mile and I went out really fast with all the boys and I stopped. And I, walked the finish. I remember being like, this is crazy. So then, I go through middle school, and then I got to high school and I did cross country, and that definitely was hard for me. They kind of were like, you're a mile or 800, but I refused to believe it. But then the coach came my sophomore year who had ran for Coach Cox, Joey Carroll. He's like, I'm going to make you a 58-second 400 runner. And I just kind of laughed. At this point, I was like, running 68 seconds. And little did I know, I ended up running 58 seconds for 400, but he kept throwing me in the 400 or the 800, even though I did not like it, and I ended up walking away running 2:14 high school, huge PR from 2:42 sophomore year, and I knew I had Coach. He always talked really well about Coach Cox, so I just kind of knew that's who I'd run for, and I embraced the 800 the day that I ran 2:14. It's like, okay, that's a lot better than 58 seconds.
Yeah, this is actually the second time we've had a Joey Carroll reference on this interview series in 8 episodes. 2 episodes ago, Jamie Klusman knew Joey Carroll. And for those of you who maybe don't know, Joey played football, ran track here for Concord. He's now a high school football coach in the state of North Carolina. But Shawnee, I did want to ask you, when did Coach Cox enter the picture for you in high school? Was it your sophomore year, your junior year, your senior year? Kind of when did things kind of get set in motion there?
It was sophomore year. I'll never forget. We were sitting at the region track meet, and he was talking to Coach Carroll, and we had just won the 4x4 in the region, and he had introduced me. And I just knew there was something about him I really liked. And I was like, I'm going to run for him one day. And this is me, like, I think I ran a 62 that year. So it's kind of a funny story.
Yeah, let's dive into your college career here, at least the beginnings of it. You get to Concord and you're getting adjusted to college competition. It can be in cross country or track. What was the first difference you realized there during your freshman year in 2009?
Well, in high school, running the 800 track, I was running like 80 miles a week. So when I got to college, I was like, oh my gosh, people run twice a day. Like, I had no clue, like, that people ran an hour. Like, and that was an hour for me. You know, you had Chelsea Calloway and Rachel running way more than an hour. And I ended up with mono that year and low iron. So that was a really tough fall, just adjusting to everything.
And I know where this is going, but I know you're not a cross country person. I know all your success came on the track, but I should mention that you and your teammates did win a conference championship in cross country in the fall of 2010. So shout out to that. But you mentioned the adversity, the illnesses you had to overcome. But how was you able to use cross country as a springboard from that fall into your freshman track season?
I got so strong because, like I said, I didn't even know what mileage was really. I was running like a sprinter running the 800. So I built up a base that allowed me to run faster in every distance. That spring of my freshman year, I ran faster for 400 meters off of just running more mileage.
Let's really get down to the nitty gritty here. You don't make the indoor championships as a freshman. Obviously, you're still dealing with some of that, some of those lingering effects of mono and low iron. But you get to your first national championship meet. It's not too far away from where you grew up at Johnson C. Smith, right there basically in downtown Charlotte, North Carolina. Give us an inside look, if you could, Shawnee, just at what the national championship looks like. I mean, obviously you have the conference meet, it's a big deal. You have, places like Duke or big meets and Mount Sac and Stanford and wherever it might be. But what's kind of the atmosphere around a national championship?
It's really serious. I always said, at conference you might talk to the girls, you might speak to them, but nationals, no one talks to each other. You're there for business. It's really intense because everybody worked really hard to get there. So, like I said, you're there to do work.
Yeah, and I'm sure there were some butterflies, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like, how could you want to be somewhere but not want to be somewhere at the same time?
Yeah, and obviously there's an inside story there, which I'd forgotten about this till Coach Cox reminded me of this a couple of days ago. But you guys had the lightning delays there at Johnson C. Smith, and the evening just kept going and going. And I can't remember what time you were supposed to race, but it was like 2 or 3 hours after the fact you actually get on the track, right?
Well, that night they ended up canceling prelims, so I only had to run 1-800 that year. They put you on the track and they called you off. They put you on the track and they ended up just canceling all prelims. Yeah,
your first All-American accolade comes there, Johnson C. Smith. You finish in the top 8, and top 8 get All-American. But from a competition standpoint, Shawnee, how did that kind of prepare you for the next steps in your career? Obviously, you're just a 19-year-old freshman at that point. You're still trying to figure out how all this works. Things are probably still going 100 miles an hour for you. But how did that prepare you for the next step?
Well, I remember watching this really good 5K runner run, and she's Jessica Pixler from Seattle Pacific. She went on to run at Colorado. She's redshirt. I remember watching her coach get to give her the medal or the trophy if you won. So I remember thinking, I want Coach Cox to give me a trophy. Get to stand out and give all 8 of the people a trophy. And before I got All-American, I just remember being like, I really, really want to stand up there. So it just really made me see. I'd never even been a state champion before. I was only all state 3 times. Mm-hmm. That was a huge eye opener to what was out there.
So you have a good summer. I mentioned the conference championship for the Concord women there in cross country in the fall of 2010. So everything's really starting to come together here. You make another national meet. This time it's your first indoor meet. That was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've always heard that that area is kind of tough, whether it be to run in, to, play football, basketball, whatever it might be. It's a tough area because of the altitude there in Albuquerque. So how was you able to adjust to pick up another All-American accolade out there in New Mexico? It would have been the spring of 2011.
Coach always said, because it'd be time change. He said, as soon as you get there, you're on Albuquerque time. So I think it was just getting there, embracing it. We all had to do that. The top, some of the top girls were from the East Coast as well. So if they had to do it, I had to do it. So I think it was just saying, I'm here just like everybody else. We all have to do the same thing.
And then you get there to Albuquerque. What was different about Albuquerque as far as the racing goes? It's obviously indoor. It's a different track than a 400-meter flat track in Charlotte. So what were some differences that you saw there in prelims to help you kind of prepare yourself for the final in indoor?
I think mostly learning through prelims, because like I said, I never had a prelim before, was to get to finals without using all of your energy. Because, you don't want to go and run your PR and then not be able to come back and finish. And that year, I knew they took top 8, so you want to make top 8, because no matter what, at the end of the day, you get All-American.
Yeah, and obviously, there's obviously a lot of stress in the final for the 800 because you're trying to win a national championship, but isn't there just as much pressure in a prelim? Because what is there, 3 prelims and they take like the top 2 and then the next 2 fastest or something like that, right?
Yes. I think to me the prelims, me and Coach always said, were way more stressful than the final, because if you come there and you're ranked, if you don't even make finals and you don't even get All-American, in the worst case scenario, you have a bad final, but you made it and you get All-American.
And
so
then
I always thought it was way more stressful.
Yeah, and Shawnee, forgive me here, you placed what in Albuquerque that year?
Third,
okay. I was thinking third, okay. So that kind of sets the stage now for your national championship run in California, and I wrote this down in 2011 during the WEVIAC championship there in 2011. You win the 800. You're on the winning 4x4 team there as well. So take me through from the time you leave Albuquerque. Obviously, you kind of have to just repeat everything, but you got to be careful because you've already peaked once to make All-American in the indoor season. Now you're trying to peak to, obviously win a conference championship, but the ultimate goal here is to win a national championship. So what is that setup kind of like?
It's tough. I think I was a little disappointed coming out of Albuquerque, which I look back and I'm like, that was still awesome, but I had, wanted to win and I was in a good place, but I felt like I just was young and I needed to learn something. So I think that I came out of that really hungry. I felt like Coach, we might have held back a little bit indoor to be ready for outdoor, because it's just really hard to peak for both.
Mm-hmm.
So, through the conference meets were always tough for me because we never peaked. So everybody around you's peaking,
mm-hmm.
but I was really, really tired. So mostly just running tired through all those races to get to outdoor nationals.
You guys go to California, Turlock, California to be exact. It's about an hour and a half west of Oakland, San Francisco, the Bay Area in California. And before we talk about the racing itself there in 2011, May of 2011, talk about the opportunity you had to race in front of some family that you had never met before. I think that's kind of awesome.
It was really awesome. My grandma grew up in California, and I never met, her sister and her brother. So I got to meet cousins, people that I would have never met since then. So it was really, really cool.
All right, so let's go inside here. It's a Friday-Saturday setup. The meet was on Memorial Day weekend of 2011, if I'm not mistaken. Take me through the prelims there. Obviously, you talk about the stress of prelims. So what was the plan in prelims there in 2011?
I think for me, it was like I came in seed first, so I thought, well, I'm just going to go and win my heat, because if you won your heat, you automatically got to go to finals. So I went and won my heat and then ended up winning the whole prelims, which gave me a lot of confidence. It was a really pretty day. The temperature was perfect. It was just a really good day overall.
Championship race, you go to championship Saturday, and I try to have a photographic memory. Sometimes it's not always the best, but through like 600 meters, maybe even 650 meters, Shawnee, you're like setting third or fourth. I mean, you only got 150 meters here, but we see the Patton, Shawnee, Carnett kick there in the last 150 meters. Just take me inside lap 1 and then lap 2 as you're trying to chase down other leaders there.
So in New Mexico, I felt like I sat back a little too far. So I was like, okay, like you could sit, always sat back. The coach was like, let's make sure we're in the game. Well, ended up being like 40 degrees in California. The temperature was terrible. It's windy. So we go out the first 200 pretty quick. So I'm like, okay, like I learned my lesson. I'm going to stay in this 200 meters. Well, then all of a sudden we dropped to 40 seconds for 200, which is really slow.
Mm-hmm.
The coach is like, just back off, let him play the game. So I mean, we went through the first 400 so slow, and then I just was like, okay, well, we'll just wait this out, and then it kind of picks up a little bit, and then I just dropped the last 200 in like 30 seconds. So that's just kind of what it took. Everybody was kicking to win that last 200.
Your first couple of years here at Concord, particularly your freshman year, 2009, and then 2010, really bad winters here in Athens. I don't know if we've had a winter in Athens like the one we had there in 2009 and on into 2010, January and February, speaking of. But you had a lot of early mornings, not only to get up and do your morning runs, but you and Coach jumped in a van and went to Virginia Tech to get runs in down there at Rector Fieldhouse in Blacksburg. So what was that like, trying to balance all of that, because you're leaving campus, I assume, probably when it's still dark? So what was some of those early morning sessions like?
They were hard because we left early. It seems like it was like 4:45. I mean, it was early. We drove, and of course the weather was not good, so it took us forever to get there. But it was really cool. I mean, we got to get a run on indoor track, which we don't have. So that was a really cool opportunity, and I really enjoyed it, even though it was tough.
What's the over-under approximate number of how many times Coach Cox shoveled the track throughout your career?
Oh my gosh, so many times. I'm so thankful for that. I don't know how we got workouts, and I know a lot. I don't even know how many times these first couple of years.
Since we're on the subject, you and Coach Cox have been probably to about 40 of the 50 states, roughly. I don't know how many it is in truth. But you guys have been East Coast, West Coast, South, North, wherever you guys have been, name it. But just give us a couple of stories, if you could, about Coach Cox, and then we'll jump back into some racing here.
I think the funniest story was we were going to Duke. I don't know if you weren't on that trip. Maybe it's our freshman year. I remember Lance was there, but I'd never been in a car with someone that got a ticket.
I know where this is going. Yep, go ahead.
Then this was my freshman year. He got pulled over for speeding, and then again we were going to New York. Me and Joe Furtick, and he got pulled over again for speeding. So that was the only 2 times I've ever been in the car. Before that, I'd ever gotten pulled over.
And then Shawnee, I also want to touch on something else. Coach Cox brought it up. Supposedly at one point you were a big Panda Express person, which I didn't know. What kind of how'd that come about? Because that just seems like an odd pre-race tradition to me. So how'd that kind of come about? And then what was the ultimate severance there with a Panda Express?
Well, I don't know. Whatever would sit on my stomach and race, because I'd rather be. I don't want to go into a race on an empty stomach. But then my junior year at Alabama, I got, I don't know, the stomach virus or the flu, and it made me pretty sick right before prelims. So that was pretty much it for me.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Alabama, and we're actually going to head down to Birmingham right now. Okay, so let me actually rewind. Let me just start over here. In 2012, you don't race indoor nationals in 2012. You redshirted 2012 indoor, correct? And then you had an injury there in the spring of 2012. I do remember that very well. So what was the feeling like, Shawnee, there? March 2013, you get to Alabama, you get back on the podium, finishing 6th. What was that feeling like? Obviously, you'd been through some more adversity with the injuries. How satisfying was it to get another All-American award there in 2013?
It was really satisfying, because before that I'd never ever been hurt, ever. Then I get to Birmingham, and I don't know if it was the stomach virus, But I remember being on prelims, and I said either I can fold up and just nobody would blame me, or I can run out here and I can get All-American. And that was probably one of the most proud moments I'd been, because I had like through all that and then get the flu or whatever it was, and then still get All-American. So I was really tough that day.
Yeah, and what's crazy is in 2013 you actually don't end up winning any conference events, which is kind of crazy in itself, that you're an All-American and you don't even win any conference events. Was that something that always just seemed kind of weird to you, the fact that you're a 6-time All-American and you're a 6-time conference champion?
It was, like I said, it was kind of funny. We always joked about it, because my freshman year I won the 400, and then my sophomore year, I remember Howard said, wouldn't it be really funny if she never won the 800, but she won the national title? But like I said, we raced through conference. It was hard. Conference was hard for me.
I went back and listened to your Hall of Fame speech, like I said at the top, Shawnee, and there's something that really stuck out to me. And you said, heading into the 2013-14 season, you just felt like you was a one-hit wonder, because you only had that one national championship. Now, obviously, you had, already been a 4-time All-American, so that speaks for itself. It's obviously hard to get an All-American once or even twice, but to do it 4 times there in a 4-year span is pretty impressive. But what was your mindset heading in to that year? Did you feel like you had something to prove, just because of the fact that, you only won one national championship and you really wasn't satisfied at that point?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure behind that, because people are like, well, you won it once, but, going in, I don't even know if people said that as much as I thought that, I don't want to say it's easy to win one, but to win 2 is really hard. So I felt like after those injuries and everything that happened, I felt like I had a lot to prove after that.
Yeah, and then, Shawnee, if you could just take me inside that 2014 Indoor National Championship. It's at Winston-Salem, a place you had raced, I guess, back in December of 2013, so about 3 months separate the 2 races there. And actually, let me back up for just a second. I know you didn't have a good race at all in 2013, December of 2013 at Winston-Salem. So, did you feel like there was some redemption to be had there as well?
Yeah, I remember, obviously I came off of being sick at nationals, and then we redshirted outdoor, so I just felt like it was just tough. But I ran horrible. And I remember sitting over there crying. I'm like, Coach, how am I going to come back here in 3 months and win a national? I didn't think I qualified that day. I just did not have a good race.
Mm-hmm.
But Coach just he's like, no, I'm not worried. We can do this.
Yeah. So now let's look at this 2014 national championship race. Winston-Salem, to where you grew up in Marion, Virginia, is only about an hour and 45 minutes or so. And obviously, I know you had a lot of family there. People from Concord was there. Coach Garrett, Anita Connor, I think, drove down. The Bards were there. It almost had to feel like it was almost like a home race for you, and that's something you never really got to experience, I'm sure, in college here, except for maybe 1 or 2 home meets in cross country, or I guess a handful of home meets in cross country. So, did you maybe put a little bit of, I don't want to say extra pressure, but did you feel like you really wanted to show off in front of, a lot of people that you knew?
Oh, yeah, because like you said, no one, a lot of people would never see me actually run a track meet, because we only had cross country. So I did feel pressure, even though it was good pressure.
Similar type deal for you. Obviously, the prelims are the most important race. You want to make sure you get into that final race there. So once again, Shawnee, just like we did with the 2011 deal, take me inside the prelims if you could.
The prelims went really, really smooth. I did the same thing I did. I kicked, and I ended up finishing number 1 out of prelims. So I felt really good. It was just that whole training block, I felt really good.
Then the championship race, I know there's some photos on our website that you are straining every last muscle in your body. It seems like the last, I guess about 50 meters or so, 40 meters maybe, to try to hold off the girl was she from Seattle Pacific?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought she had SPU on her chest there. So what was that battle like there over the last few meters of that race?
I think really it came down to I kicked just a little bit before her, and I was able to hold her off. I think I just I just kicked and that's the way it worked.
Yeah, and then Shawnee, before we talk about your final national championship race at Grand Valley State, you're in all these national championship races, over the years. Is there someone that you constantly went head to head with? I know that you and I have had this conversation before, but my memory is just completely jumbled right now. So was there someone that you just constantly went head to head with and you felt like was almost a rival, not necessarily from our conference, but just in general at all these national meets?
Definitely the girl. I beat her indoors. She beat me outdoors from Seattle Pacific, Michaela Fricker. That was definitely. We were the same age, but I think she kind of took off at the end of her career. So really, that last year, we really became rivals.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. The fact that you 3 time zones away on the other side of the U.S. and that's someone is really a big rival. I think that's really neat. So your final championship race, you come up just a little bit short at Grand Valley State there in Michigan in the 2014 outdoor season. But what is something that you still take away from that race to this day?
I think just being grateful that I made it there, and I ran hard, and there was a lot of emotions behind that, knowing that was the last time I was ever going to wear the uniform.
Yeah, and then Shawnee, if you could, what's one thing you look back on? I'm sure you look back on all this travel, but what's something you always carry with you about Concord?
I loved it. I think it's like my second home. It was just really special, and I was watching one of the 5K guys on the track, and I was there when they did the time trial. I was like, man, I really miss those days.
Yeah, no doubt. So your college career comes to an end, and like I said, what a decorated career it was. 6-time national champion, the two national championships, still a school record holder in 9 events. You went into the Hall of Fame in 2016. But I've talked to 7 other people about this. The college career is going to come to an end, unfortunately, one day. There's certain people you just wish you could see run and play forever, and you're definitely one of them. But what was kind of your reasoning for getting into coaching there for a handful of years at Emory and Henry?
I just loved really. Coach Cox was an awesome coach, and I kind of was like, man, I think. That's something I would want to do. I think he had a positive impact, and I really liked the athletes that I got to coach. We had, I had fun that few years that I got to do that.
All right, Shawnee, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, how often do you still run today?
Even up to I have 3 kids. I ran the last 2 up till pretty much I had them.
Daggone.
I try to at least 5 days a week. Really, I'd like to 6, but I stay in the room quite a bit still.
So let me ask you this: have you bumped up in distance, or are you still just sitting right there around like the mile?
Yeah, I think I can actually run like an hour, and I don't hate it. But if I could, now I think I'd like to maybe try a half marathon at some point, but I don't know. We'll see.
Sure, I know your husband Brandon was a swimmer at Davidson. 3 kids, has there? Obviously they're 3, 1, and 5 weeks old, but has there been any discussions about what sport they might play whenever they get older?
That's what we're like. Well, you don't want to be those parents that push them, but Rory already, he sees me run all the time, and he's like, I want to go out there with you, and he'll run, he'll walk and run. It's pretty cute.
Good deal, Shawnee. Well, we appreciate the time here this evening. We covered a lot of ground, and obviously, like I said, just such a decorated athlete, the most decorated athlete here at Concord, and it was great to catch up this evening.
Thank you, Wes. It's great to go back.
Yeah, no, I remember the 2 national championship races just like it was yesterday, especially your 2011 race. A story here. I remember back in the spring of 2011, they were showing I think it was the pole vault at the national championship race, and I'm watching my computer screen going, are they going to switch over to the 800 or and then finally they ended up, I think they I think you guys were maybe like 100 meters in when they finally switched over to the 800 meter run, but there was a lot of a lot of people on the edge of their seat. I know back in West Virginia and, obviously Virginia, because they were showing pole vault and not the 800-meter run.
Well, I remember you could see where people commented, and you would comment it on that.
Yeah.
Saying, we need to see the 800.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. But, Shawnee, thank you so much for the time, and we look forward to your future and seeing your kids grow up, and hopefully one day they'll be mountain lions as well.
Thank you, Wes.
Once again, Shawnee Carnett Kegley on the 8th edition of Concord University Athletic Alumni at Work.